I'm Lorie, and I'm a staff at Apple Tree Books. We're going to talk about middle school readers today. And here to talk about those things, or those kind of books, is Kelly Whittaker. Hi, Kelly. Can you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Sure. I'm Kelly Whittaker. I used to be part of the staff here at Apple Tree Books, and I was also a middle school teacher. I just also love middle reader books, so I'm here to talk about them, and I'm really happy to be here. So
Thank you.
yeah, you're welcome.
What grade is middle school?
Well, middle school can range typically from grade 5 to grade 8, and these books would appeal to those grades. Some might be more sophisticated than others, so I don't necessarily think I'd recommend them all for all the grades 5 through 8, and we can talk about which ones specifically. So, it depends on the school, but that's about the middle reader. So The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe is the first in the series of the Chronicles of Narnia. Now, it's actually disputed whether this is the first one or The Magician's Nephew is the first one, and loyalists of C.S. Lewis and Chronicles of Narnia fans argue very vehemently that this is the first one you should read. So while it says number 2 on the spine, read this one first. So The Chronicles of Narnia is written by C.S. Lewis. It's a fantasy fairy tale genre book. And what I think is really neat about these books, it enters with the dedication that C.S. Lewis gives to the Chronicles of Narnia, which is to his goddaughter Lucy. And he says, as I'm writing these, you are very young, but by the time I finished, you will be old, but hopefully you will be old enough that you will appreciate a fairy tale again. And I think when you read a fantasy or a fairy tale book, that's the mark of a good fairy tale book or a good fantasy book, is can a middle reader like it? Can someone who is young really enjoy it for its just plot and its action and its adventure? But all the while there's a deeper message and a deeper meaning, and that's what the Chronicles of Narnia does. And I think C.S. Lewis really creates the blueprint for fantasy and fairy tale novels. People who like Harry Potter or people who like The Lightning Thief, they should really start with C.S. Lewis, because he was really paved the way for those types of books. And I'll give a slight nod to Lord of the Rings as well. They kind of fit into the genre. But The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe in this series of the Chronicles of Narnia, it follows the story of the Pevensey children in England and their adventures in this fantasy world of Narnia. And they combat they combat evil, trying to overcome it with good. And it's a wonderful adventure story. But the messages that lie not too far beneath the surface, actually, are what draw me to read these books time and time again. I've read these books, 5-6 times, and each time I find something new. I find them just as enjoyable the first time I read it. And when I've suggested them to some of my middle school students, they'll say, well, I read those when I was in 3rd grade or 4th grade. And I said, well, then it's time to revisit them again. It's time to learn more about what these books have to offer. And these are books that can be read multiple times over.
And multiple ages, I think, too.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm a big fan of parents or families reading together with their children. And these books especially can be read with a 2nd grader or a 5th grader and a parent all together at reading time. So and there's another series that also you're able to do with that here. We'll talk about that later, but these are such a hit, and I don't know. While they may be old, they're very classic and not out of date, I think.
No, they are not.
No. Have you ever read them?
Yes.
Yeah. Do you remember about them, or have you read them recently? Or
I haven't read them recently. I actually have all of them.
All of them?
And I've seen the movies of all of them.
Yeah.
I've even seen a play of The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe.
Really?
Just done in one place.
That's neat.
And it was still fascinating.
They are fascinating. Yeah, I think, what's timeless about these books is that I think they reveal a lot about our human nature, like our weaknesses, our desires, our yearnings, and how we can overcome our weaknesses with courage and bravery. There's a lot of those really strong thematic elements to this book. And
Yes.
anyways.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
A good range.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
Thank you. Thank
You're
you.
welcome. Yeah. Well, and I think that actually leads well into The Girl Who Drank the Moon, which is a far more contemporary novel. I think, gosh, I don't know when it came out, 2016.
Yes.
And it won was it the Newbery or John Newbery Medal? And this is a very fantastical novel, full of fairy tale elements. And when you describe the plot to people, they kind of dismiss it as a little too outlandish or a little too wild. But I think, like, if you think about Hans Christian Andersen's fairy tales, I mean, those are outlandish, those are wild, but there are messages to them and lessons to them. And I think the same for The Girl Who Drank the Moon. So have you read this one or heard of it?
Partly through it.
And what do you think of it so far?
I like it.
Yeah.
Yes, it seems to be getting better and better.
Yeah.
Right now, the young man that was then elder in training
Oh,
is now a carpenter of the finest.
Yeah.
Yes, and he is growing up, and he just met a young lady who can see past his disfigurement,
Yes.
which that's where I've gotten. And the girl that's drank the moon, she's still working on it.
Yeah.
And the wonderful witch
Yeah.
is working very hard to make her a wonderful girl.
Yes. Well, and I think you alluded to, a few characters, and there's different subplots to the story, and these stories do eventually intertwine at the end in a very satisfying resolution.
Good.
Yes, don't worry. But the plot essentially is this girl was abandoned in a forest, and this happens once a year, and this very kind witch takes this abandoned child and delivers this child to a town that welcomes children. Unfortunately for Luna, she receives some magical powers, and so this kind witch, wanting to be responsible so that this girl doesn't, take advantage of her powers or they're not used in a bad way, she takes her under her wing. And what we later learn is the antagonist, the bad witch in the story, actually takes babies from another community because she feeds on the sorrow of others. So again, that sounds so fantastical. It sounds very weird and out there, but what I think the theme of this story is familial love, and that you don't have to have blood relation to have a wonderful family, and to have hope and real courage to overcome evil with love and courage. So I think all of the books I really enjoy for middle readers have that strong sense of good overcoming evil, because I think when you're a middle school student, there's a lot of scary challenges out there. You're growing, and the changes are hard, and there's bullying, and there's so many things you need to deal with. And so this message of goodness and courage and bravery is a good message for all of us, but I think particularly important and poignant for the middle reader.